The stars looked different from Luna Base. Frank Mitchell stood at the observation window, hands clasped behind his back as he stared out at the blackness of space. 6 years in the Navy had taken him to every corner of Earth, but nothing compared to serving on humanity's first permanent outpost on the Moon as a lieutenant. His job involved monitoring deep space communications and keeping track of the various research vessels and satellites scattered throughout the solar system. It was quiet work, peaceful even until today. "Lieutenant Mitchell, report to command immediately." The voice over the intercom broke the silence of the observation deck. Frank turned quickly and headed for the main elevator. The tone in the announcement suggested urgency, something rare in the usually calm lunar operations. Captain Lisa Reeves stood in front of the main tracking screen when Frank arrived. Her normally composed face showed clear concern as she pointed to several bright dots moving on the display. "These appeared 30 minutes ago," she said without looking away from the screen. "They came from nowhere, no warning, and they're moving faster than anything we've ever tracked." Frank stepped closer, studying the objects. "Meteors?" "Not unless meteors can change direction and accelerate," Lisa replied. "Whatever they are, they're heading for Mars." Around them, the command center buzzed with activity as technicians tried to make sense of the data coming in. No human spacecraft had the capabilities these objects were showing. The implications hung heavy in the air. After decades of searching the stars for signs of intelligent life, it seemed that contact might finally happen. "Have we tried communicating with them?" Frank asked. "Every frequency, every known protocol." Lisa said, "Nothing back yet." Over the next 12 hours, the objects, now clearly identified as spacecraft of some kind, positioned themselves around Mars. Earth governments scrambled to prepare for first contact, sending messages of peace and friendship toward the alien vessels. Scientists and military leaders alike speculated about the visitors' intentions. Were they explorers? Refugees? Something else entirely? 3 days after their arrival, the answer became terrifyingly clear. Frank was awakened by alarms blaring throughout the base. He rushed to the command center to find chaos. The main screen showed thermal flashes across the surface of Mars, centered on the Ares research station where 57 scientists and security personnel lived. "They're attacking the outpost," Lisa said, her voice tight with anger and shock. "No warning, no demands, they just opened fire." The alien ships had deployed smaller craft to the surface, and grainy footage from the station's external cameras showed tall, four-armed figures moving methodically through the human settlement. The distress calls from Mars were desperate and brief. Within an hour, all communication from the research station went silent. Earth responded with confusion and outrage. The United Nations Security Council convened an emergency session, and for once, nations stood united against an external threat. As diplomats continued attempting contact with the alien ships, military forces around the world were placed on high alert. "The 15th Marine Expeditionary Unit is being deployed to Luna Base," Lisa informed Frank the next morning. "They were already here for training exercises. Command wants them ready for potential response actions." Frank had worked with Marines before, but mostly in training exercises. They were a different breed from Navy personnel, more aggressive, more direct. As the transport ships arrived carrying the MEU, Frank was assigned as liaison between Luna Command and the Marine leadership. The Marines moved with purpose as they unloaded their equipment and set up in the base's north quadrant. Leading one of the squads was Staff Sergeant Olivia Warren, a woman whose confident stride and watchful eyes marked her as experienced beyond her years. Frank introduced himself as she supervised the unpacking of weapons cases. "Lieutenant Mitchell," she acknowledged with a brief nod. "Navy intelligence, right? What can you tell us about these aliens that my Marines need to know?" "Not much yet," Frank admitted. "We're calling them the Kravak based on sounds we've picked up from their communications. They're bigger than us, 4 arms, seem to have some kind of external armor or exoskeleton. Beyond that, we know they're hostile and apparently view us as targets rather than potential allies." Olivia checked a pulse rifle before handing it to one of her Marines. Any word on survivors from the Mars station? Frank shook his head. We lost all contact. Satellite imagery shows the station is partially destroyed, and the aliens are already building something else in its place. Some kind of forward base. Classic invasion strategy, Olivia remarked. Establish a foothold, then expand. These aren't explorers, they're conquerors. As they spoke, more Marines arrived, filling the corridors of Luna Base with their disciplined movement and focused energy. Frank noticed how different they were from the scientists and technicians who normally populated the base. These men and women carried themselves with the confidence of predators. That evening, the UN Security Council authorized military action. The attack on Mars was deemed an act of war against all humanity, and for the first time in history, Earth would respond to an extraterrestrial threat with force. In the briefing room, Frank watched as Olivia gathered her squad. 10 Marines, each specializing in different aspects of combat, listened intently as she outlined what little they knew about the enemy. We don't know why they attacked, she told them bluntly. We don't know what they want. But we do know they killed our people without provocation. In 3 days, we'll be dropping onto Mars as part of Operation Red Soil. Our job is to assess enemy capabilities, rescue any survivors, and gather intelligence for the main force. A young Marine raised his hand. Staff Sergeant, what if their technology is way beyond ours? We've all seen what their ships can do. Olivia's expression remained steady. Private Ellis, throughout history, superior technology hasn't always determined the victor. The Kravak may have better ships and weapons, but they've never faced Marines before. We adapt, we overcome, and we never quit. That's what makes us different. Frank stayed after the briefing, watching as Olivia reviewed mission plans. You really think we have a chance against them? He asked her. She looked up from her tablet. I think these aliens made a serious mistake. They attacked without understanding who they were attacking. Humans don't surrender easily, Lieutenant, and Marines don't surrender at all. Over the next 2 days, Frank worked closely with the Marine units, sharing all available intelligence and helping prepare communication protocols. The newly commissioned battle carrier Uns Defiant arrived in lunar orbit, its experimental stealth systems designed to approach Mars undetected. On the night before deployment, Frank found Olivia in the observation deck, looking toward the distant red dot that was Mars. Command wants me to join your squad as communications specialist, he told her. My background in linguistics might help if we encounter any aliens. Olivia didn't look pleased. No offense, Lieutenant, but we're not going there to talk. Maybe. Not, Frank agreed, but understanding their communications could save lives. She considered this, then nodded once. Just don't slow us down, Navy. Tomorrow we make history. First humans to fight an alien enemy. I intend to make sure the Kravak remember it. As they stood there, looking out at the stars that no longer seemed peaceful, Frank wondered what humanity had gotten itself into. But watching Olivia and her Marines prepare with such determination, he felt something he hadn't expected. Hope, whatever these Kravak were. They were about to learn a painful lesson about humanity, and the teachers would be the Marines. The inside of the dropship was dark and cramped. Olivia Warren checked her gear one final time as the vessel shuddered around her. Beside her, 9 Marines from her squad sat in silence, each focused on their own pre-battle routines. Some closed their eyes in prayer or meditation, others checked their weapons again and again. At the end of the row sat Lieutenant Mitchell, looking uncomfortable in combat armor that still had the stiff newness of something rarely worn. 2 minutes to atmospheric entry, the pilot's voice announced over the intercom. Dust storm in the landing zone might give us some cover, but sensors show heavy activity around the alien base. Olivia looked at her squad. Remember the plan. We land, we gather intel, we identify any survivors, and we call in the main force. This is recon, not an assault. Frank Mitchell nodded, his hands tightly gripping the harness that kept him secured to his seat. If we can capture one of them alive, it would help us understand their language and technology. Staying alive comes first, Lieutenant. Olivia replied, then she addressed the full squad. Mars' gravity is about 1/3 of Earth's. That means we'll be able to move faster, jump higher, and hit harder than we could in training. Use it to your advantage. The dropship began to shake violently as it entered the Martian atmosphere. Red warning lights flashed in the cabin, and the temperature rose noticeably. Through a small viewport, Olivia caught glimpses of the red planet's surface growing closer. In the distance, the alien structures sprawled across what had once been the Ares research station. The Kravak had worked quickly, expanding the human facility into something much larger. Suddenly, a massive jolt threw everyone against their restraints. Alarms blared throughout the ship. "We're hit," the pilot shouted. "Automated defense system." Trying to maintain control. The dropship spun wildly, throwing the Marines against their harnesses with bruising force. Olivia saw Frank's face pale as the vessel plummeted toward the surface. "Brace for hard landing," the pilot yelled just before impact. The crash sent Olivia's world into darkness for a moment. When she came to, smoke filled the cabin and emergency lights cast an eerie red glow over the interior. She quickly checked herself for injuries. Nothing broken, just bruised and disoriented. Around her, her squad was doing the same, helping each other free from tangled harnesses. "Sound off," she ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos. One by one, the Marines called out. All had survived the crash, though Private Garcia had a broken arm and Corporal Davis was bleeding from a gash on his forehead. Frank Mitchell looked dazed but unhurt. "Pilot's dead," reported Sergeant Kyle Peterson after checking the cockpit. "Radio's damaged but might be fixable. Navigation system shows we're about 2 kilometers south of the target zone." Olivia checked the tactical display on her wrist. The main Marine force was supposed to land north of the alien base, but communications were down, and she had no way of knowing if the other dropships had made it safely. "We stick to the mission," she decided. "Move toward the base, stay low. Observe and report." She turned to Frank. "Can you get that radio working?" He nodded, already examining the damaged equipment. "Give me 15 minutes. While Frank worked on communications, Olivia led the others outside to secure the crash site. The Martian landscape stretched out around them, barren and rust-colored under a pale pink sky. The dust storm that was supposed to cover their approach had mostly passed, leaving only a hazy atmosphere that limited visibility to about half a kilometer. "There," Sergeant Peterson pointed to a ridge to the north. "That's the edge of the alien construction. And those lights moving around, those must be their patrols?" Olivia used her helmet's zoom function to get a better look. The aliens were indeed massive, at least 7 feet tall, with 4 limbs that ended in what looked like clawed hands. They wore some kind of armored exoskeleton that glinted dully in the Martian sunlight. Frank emerged from the wreckage with the repaired radio. "I can receive but not transmit." The other teams made it down, but they're scattered across the landing zone. "Command is ordering everyone to proceed with the mission regardless." "Any word on survivors from the research station?" Olivia asked. Frank's expression darkened. "Nothing confirmed? But there's chatter about movement detected inside what used to be the main lab complex." Olivia made her decision quickly. "We move toward the base, stay in the shadow of the ridgeline. Full stealth protocol." She looked at the injured Marines. "Garcia, Davis, you secure the crash site. The rest of you with me." The reduced squad moved carefully across the Martian surface. The lower gravity made movement strange. Each step threatened to send them bouncing too high, potentially exposing their position. But their training adapted quickly, and soon they were making good progress toward the alien facility. As they approached, the true scale of the Kravak construction became apparent. In just 3 days, they had transformed the modest research outpost into a sprawling complex with towers that reached 30 meters into the sky. Strange energy fields shimmered around some structures, and vehicles unlike anything humans had built moved between buildings. "We need to get closer," Olivia whispered. "Find a way inside." They used a dried riverbed for cover, moving slowly toward the perimeter of the base. Frank stayed close to Olivia, recording everything with his helmet camera for later analysis. As they reached the outer edge of the facility, they heard something that made them freeze, human voices. Following the sounds, they came upon a terrible scene. A group of about a dozen humans in tattered research uniforms were being marched across an open area by 4 Kravak guards. The aliens towered over their prisoners, occasionally shoving one who moved slowly with a weapon that resembled a spear but crackled with energy at its tip. "Survivors," Frank whispered. "They're still alive." "Not for long," Sergeant Peterson replied grimly. "Look where they're taking them." The prisoners were being led toward a pit that had been dug into the Martian soil. Another alien stood at the edge, methodically shooting each human with a weapon that disintegrated them partially on impact, leaving enough remains to fall into the mass grave. Olivia felt cold rage building inside her. This wasn't war, it was execution. She looked at her squad, saw the same anger in their eyes, and knew their mission had just changed. "New plan," she said quietly. "We're getting those people out." Peterson, Williams, circle around to the right. Jones and Lee left flank. "Mitchell, stay with me." She checked her weapon. "On my signal, we hit them fast and hard. Remember the gravity advantage." Frank looked alarmed. "Staff Sergeant, this isn't the mission. We're outnumbered and outgunned." "The mission changed the moment we saw that," Olivia replied, nodding toward the execution in progress. "Marines don't stand by while civilians are murdered." The squad moved into position. Olivia watched as more prisoners were brought forward, waiting until the maximum number of survivors were present but before more were killed. Then she gave the signal. The Marines struck from 3 directions simultaneously. In the lighter Martian gravity, their movements were faster than the aliens anticipated, and the first volley of fire caught the Kravak completely by surprise. 2 guards fell immediately, their armored bodies crumpling under concentrated fire. The alien at the pit turned its weapon toward the attacking humans, but Olivia was already airborne, using the low gravity to leap a distance impossible on Earth. She crashed into the executioner with her full weight, driving it to the ground. Its armor was tough but not impenetrable, and her combat knife found a seam between plates. The remaining Kravak responded with more coordination than expected, using their multiple arms to fire weapons while seeking cover. One Marine took a hit that scorched through his armor, but the squad's fire discipline proved superior. Within minutes, all the alien guards were down. "Secure the prisoners," Olivia ordered. "Mitchell, see if you can communicate with them." As Frank approached the terrified researchers, one of the fallen aliens moved suddenly, lunging toward him with unexpected speed. Olivia's reaction was instantaneous, 3 shots that punched through the creature's head covering. It collapsed. At Frank's feet, green fluid pooling beneath it. "Thanks," Frank said shakily. Then he noticed something. "This one's different. The armor is more elaborate." Olivia examined the alien she had taken down. "An officer, maybe? We should take it with us." "You wanted a specimen to study." The rescued scientist, though traumatized, confirmed Frank's theory. "That's their communications officer," one woman explained. "They've been interrogating us about Earth's defenses." As they prepared to move the survivors and their alien prisoner back to the crash site, the Kravak officer regained consciousness. It looked at the humans with multifaceted eyes that showed no emotion Olivia could recognize. "What are you creatures?" It asked in halting, mechanical English that seemed to come from a device on its armor. Olivia met its alien gaze steadily. "We're Marines," she replied simply before securing the prisoner for transport. News of the successful raid on Mars spread quickly through Earth's military and political circles. The rescue of 12 scientists and capture of a Kravak officer was celebrated as humanity's first victory against the alien invaders, for the 17 species previously conquered by the hegemony. Such resistance had been unthinkable. Lieutenant Frank Mitchell found himself promoted to lieutenant commander and reassigned to Earth Command, where his work with the captive alien proved invaluable. The Kravak, who identified itself as 3rd Communication Officer Dexan, became a reluctant source of intelligence about the invaders. "Their entire society is built on conquest," Frank explained during a briefing with the newly formed Terran Defense Force leadership. They've never encountered significant military resistance before. The 17 systems they've conquered surrendered quickly, usually after a show of force similar to what they did on Mars. General Alan Nguyen, the Marine Corps officer appointed to lead Earth's defense, leaned forward in his chair. And their military capabilities? How do they compare to ours? Their technology is more advanced, Frank admitted. Faster ships, stronger armor, energy weapons. But their tactics are rigid, almost predictable. They operate on strict hierarchies and preset battle plans. According to Dexan, adaptability is seen as a weakness in their culture. Warriors who improvise are considered unreliable. On the main screen behind Frank, images from the Mars raid played. The footage showed Staff, Sergeant Warren and her Marines moving with speed and coordination that had clearly surprised the aliens. That's our advantage, General Nguyen said, pointing to the screen. They may have better technology, but we have better warriors. Humans adapt. Marines adapt faster than anyone. In the 2 weeks since the Mars incident, the situation had grown more serious. Supreme Commander Zarthal, ruler of the Kravak hegemony, had dispatched his most accomplished general Drevkar with a fleet of 30 warships to crush the human resistance. Earth's hastily assembled defense force seemed hopelessly outmatched. Frank found Olivia Warren in the training center at Camp Pendleton, where she was now drilling new Marine units in anti-Kravak tactics. Her promotion to lieutenant had been fast-tracked after Mars, and she had emerged as one of the few humans with direct combat experience against the aliens. Commander Mitchell, she greeted him with a quick salute. Come to see how real warriors prepare for battle? Their relationship had evolved since Mars. The initial tension had given way to mutual respect, though Olivia still enjoyed teasing him about his Navy background. Actually, I came to tell you about a new mission, Frank replied. General Nguyen wants you at the briefing in 30 minutes. In the command center, General Nguyen outlined a bold plan. Rather than waiting for Drevkar's fleet to reach Earth, they would take the fight to the enemy. Using transponder codes and technical data extracted from the captured communications officer, a small strike force would infiltrate the approaching fleet and target its flagship. This is General Drevkar, Nguyen said, displaying an image of a Kravak larger than any they had seen before. Its armor was elaborate, covered in markings that Dexan had explained signified conquests and rank. He's never lost a campaign in 30 years of warfare. He's also never faced Marines. The plan called for 3 boarding teams, using captured Kravak shuttles to approach the flagship during a scheduled rotation of support craft. Lieutenant Warren would lead one team, with Lieutenant Commander Mitchell coordinating communications between the teams from the stealth frigate Yen's Phantom. This is a high-risk operation, Nguyen concluded. But the intelligence we could gain from capturing Drevkar and accessing his ship's database would be invaluable. More importantly, such a bold strike might shake the Kravak's confidence. 3 days later, the mission launched. The Yen's Phantom, carrying 60 Marines and support personnel, used experimental stealth technology to approach the Kravak fleet undetected. From his position in the communications center, Frank watched as the 3 captured shuttles launched, each carrying 15 Marines disguised in modified Kravak armor. Shuttle 1 in position, came Olivia's voice over the secure channel. Approaching. Docking Bay 3, no challenges so far. Frank monitored the alien communications, ready to provide emergency responses if the teams were questioned. But the Kravak's rigid adherence to procedure worked against them. The shuttles, broadcasting the correct codes, were accepted without question into the massive flagship. We're in, Olivia reported, moving to Phase 2. The plan called for Team 1 to secure the main database, Team 2 to disable key weapon systems, and Team 3 to capture Drevkar himself. The teams moved through the massive vessel, using the intelligence provided by Dexan to navigate its confusing layout. Frank listened to the sporadic communications as the Marines encountered the first resistance. The sounds of energy weapons and conventional gunfire came through his headset, along with the terse, professional exchanges of Marines in combat. Team 2 encountering heavy resistance near auxiliary control, reported Captain Rodriguez. These ones are better trained than the Mars garrison. Team 3 proceeding to command deck, came another voice. We've lost Jackson and Patel. Frank relayed the team's positions to General Nguyen, who watched from Earth Command. The operation was proceeding, but at a cost. The Kravak, though surprised by the attack, were responding with increasing coordination. Team 1 has reached the database. Olivia's voice came through, strained but determined. Downloading now. Stevens took a bad hit. Need extraction for him when possible. Frank directed the medical team standing by on the Phantom, then focused on monitoring Kravak communications. What he heard alarmed him. Warren, be advised, they're sealing internal bulkheads. They're trying to trap you inside. Understood, she replied. Download at 70%. We need 5 more minutes. Frank watched the ship's schematics on his screen, noting with growing concern how the Kravak forces were converging on the Marines' positions. Team 2 was cut off, fighting a desperate holding action near the weapons control center. Team 3 had reached the approach to the command deck but was pinned down by heavy fire. Team 1, download complete, Olivia reported. Moving to support. Team 3, the next 20 minutes were chaos. Frank coordinated between the teams as they fought their way through the alien vessel. The Marines' training in zero-gravity combat proved decisive. They used the ship's environment in ways the Kravak never expected, moving through maintenance shafts and air circulation systems to outflank the defenders. Team 3 has breached the command deck, came the report. Heavy casualties, need immediate support. On our way, Olivia responded. 2 minutes out. Frank could hear the intensity of the battle through the communications link. When Olivia's team reached the command deck, they found Team 3 reduced to just 4 Marines still fighting against Drevkar's personal guard. The final assault was brutal and costly. The Marines fought room by room, pushing toward the ship's commander. Frank heard Olivia shouting orders, coordinating the remaining fighters with calm efficiency despite the chaos around her. Then came a moment of silence, followed by Olivia's voice, tight with pain but triumphant. Target secured. General Drevkar is in custody, requesting immediate extraction. The return journey was solemn. Of the 45 Marines who had boarded the flagship, only 27 returned alive. But they brought with them an unprecedented prize, the second highest-ranking officer in the Kravak military hierarchy, along with a complete copy of the flagship's database. In the medical bay of the Phantom, Frank found Olivia being treated for plasma burns along her left side. Despite her injuries, she was already debriefing her team, ensuring that every detail of the mission was recorded. "How's our guest?" she asked when she saw Frank. "Confused," Frank replied. "He keeps asking how such a primitive species could possibly have boarded his ship. According to him, none of the other species they've conquered would have attempted such a tactic." Olivia managed a pained smile. "What did you tell him?" "I translated your exact words from Mars," Frank said. "We're Marines. We adapt." As the Phantom raced back to Earth, news of the raid sent shockwaves through the Kravak fleet. For the first time in their long history of conquest, doubt began to creep into their certainty. Stories spread among the alien crews, stories of human warriors who fought with unexpected ferocity and adapted to any situation. And at the center of these stories was a single word that the Kravak had never encountered before. A word that was beginning to carry weight among their ranks. Marines. The capture of General Drevkar enraged Supreme Commander Zarthal. No species had ever dared to attack a hegemony flagship, let alone capture one of his most decorated generals. Earth would pay for this insult with complete destruction. Zarthal gathered his full invasion force, over 100 warships, and took personal command of the fleet. The Kravak leader had never faced defeat in 2 centuries of conquest, and he would not start now. On Earth, the Terran Defense Force worked frantically to prepare for the coming attack. The database from Drevkar's flagship provided invaluable information about Kravak weapons, ship designs, and battle tactics. Scientists and engineers worked around the clock to develop countermeasures, while military units from around the World trained for the coming conflict. Now-Major. Frank Mitchell led the intelligence team analyzing the Kravok battle doctrine. Their entire military operates on predetermined strategies, he explained to the United Nations Security Council. When Situation A occurs, they always respond with Tactic B. They consider this reliability, but to us it's predictability. Lieutenant Olivia Warren, recovered from her injuries, had been tasked with training special operations teams in anti-Kravok tactics. Her first-hand experience fighting the aliens made her expertise essential. Marines, Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, and special forces from a dozen nations trained under her guidance, learning to exploit the weaknesses in the aliens' combat approach. They're stronger than us physically, and their technology is superior, Olivia told her trainees. That they expect enemies to react with fear and panic. They've never faced an enemy that punches back after taking a hit. That's what humans do. That's what Marines have always done. The 2 weeks following Drevkara's capture were a blur of preparation and training. Earth's orbital defenses were strengthened. Space-based weapons platforms were deployed, and civilian populations in major cities were evacuated to underground shelters. Everyone knew the coming battle would determine humanity's survival. Frank found Olivia in the simulator room, running her team through another boarding exercise. Since the successful raid on Drevkara's flagship, boarding actions had become a central part of Earth's defense strategy. General Nguyen wants to see us, Frank said when she finished the training session. The long-range sensors have detected Zarthal-S fleet. They'll reach Earth orbit in less than 24 hours. In the war room beneath the Pentagon, General Nguyen outlined the final defense plan. Earth's forces were outnumbered and outgunned. But they had one advantage, the Kravok-S inability to adapt quickly to unexpected tactics. We've analyzed their approach to planetary conquest, Nguyen explained, pointing to a holographic display of Earth's orbital space. They always follow the same pattern: establish orbital dominance, neutralize military targets from space, then land ground forces to secure key locations. The general continued, our strategy is to let them think they're following their standard playbook while we prepare surprises at every step. Space-based platforms here, and here will engage their first wave. Our fighter squadrons will remain hidden behind the moon until the Kravok commit to their primary attack vector. Frank and Olivia exchanged glances. Both knew the plan was bold but desperate. Earth simply didn't have the firepower to match the alien fleet in a conventional battle. And this is where you two come in, Nguyen said, zooming the display to show a massive ship at the center of the Kravok formation. Intelligence from Drevkar confirms that Zarthal will command from this vessel. While our forces engage the main fleet, 3 special operations teams will board the command ship. Lieutenant Warren will lead the primary assault team. Frank looked at Olivia with concern. That's a suicide mission. Maybe, she replied calmly. But if we can capture or eliminate Zarthal, their entire command structure might collapse. According to everything we've learned, the Kravok don't function well without clear leadership. Major Mitchell will coordinate the operation from Earth Command, Nguyen continued. His knowledge of Kravok communications and language will be essential for guiding the teams through the ship. The next day, Earth waited as the alien fleet approached. Civilians huddled in shelters, watching news feeds that showed the massive Kravok vessels moving into position around the planet. Military forces stood ready, following the carefully crafted plan that represented humanity's best hope. Frank sat at his station in Earth Command, monitoring alien communications as the battle began. The first wave of Kravok ships moved exactly as predicted, taking up positions to begin bombardment of key military installations. That's when Earth sprung its first surprise. Hidden weapons platforms activated, launching concentrated fire at the late alien vessels. Fighter squadrons burst from concealment behind the moon, striking the Kravok ships from an unexpected direction. For precious minutes, confusion reigned in the alien fleet as they attempted to respond to attacks from multiple vectors. They're regrouping, Frank reported, listening to the frantic Kravok communications. Zarthal is ordering them into defensive formation Delta, exactly as we predicted, General Nguyen nodded. Launch Phase 2. The second wave of Earth's defense included EMP weapons designed specifically to target Kravok shield systems, based on information from the captured database. Several alien ships suddenly found their defenses weakened or disabled, leaving them vulnerable to conventional weapons. As the battle raged in orbit, Frank coordinated with Olivia's team as they approached Zarthul's command ship and a captured Kravok shuttle. Their defensive grid is focused outward, he told her. You should have a clean approach to docking Bay 6. Copy that, Olivia responded. Team is ready, beginning final approach. Frank watched anxiously as the small craft carrying 30 of Earth's best fighters, Marines, SEALs, and Special Forces operators from around the world moved toward the massive alien flagship. Two other teams approached from different vectors, creating multiple threats that the Kravok would have to address. The boarding action began according to plan, with all three teams successfully entering the flagship. But the Kravok had learned from their previous encounter with human boarding parties. Heavy resistance met the teams as soon as they left their shuttles. Team 2 is pinned down near the main reactor, came the urgent report. Team 3 has suffered heavy casualties but is proceeding toward the secondary command center. Olivia's voice came through clearly despite the sounds of battle in the background. Team 1 is pushing toward the main command deck. We've encountered elite guards. These ones adapt better than the others we've faced. Frank guided the teams through the massive vessel, using the ship's schematics from the captured database. The fighting was intense, with the human forces using every trick and tactic they had learned about Kravok weaknesses. In the zero-gravity environment of the flagship, the special training Olivia had implemented proved invaluable. Team 1 has reached the approach to the command deck, Olivia reported, her voice tight with controlled tension. 8 of us left. Request status of other teams. Frank checked the tactical display. Team 2 is still engaged near the reactor. Team 3 reports success in disrupting ship communications but can't reach your position. Understood, Olivia replied. We're proceeding. Alone. The next 10 minutes were the longest of Frank's life as he listened to the sounds of brutal combat. Olivia's team fought their way through the final defenses, protecting Zarthul, losing more Marines with each meter gained. Finally he heard the sounds of the command deck doors being breached. We're in, Olivia reported, her voice now showing signs of pain and exhaustion. 4 of us left, engaging Zarthul's personal guard. The final confrontation was chaos. Frank could hear energy weapons fire, explosions, and the shouted commands as the last Marines fought their way toward the Supreme Commander. Then came a period of silence that seemed to stretch forever. When Olivia's voice finally came through again, it was weak but determined. Target secured. Zarthul is down. I repeat, Zarthul is down. Status of your team? Frank asked urgently. There was a long pause. Just me now, Olivia replied. I'm badly hit. Not going to make extraction. Her breathing was labored, each word an effort. Make sure this counts, Frank. Frank worked frantically, using his knowledge of Kravok systems to access the flagship's communication network. I'm patching you into their fleet-wide channel, he told Olivia. Whatever you want to say, they'll all hear it. With the last of her strength, Olivia dragged herself to Zarthul's command station. The Supreme Commander lay dead nearby, his elaborate armor shattered by Marine weapons fire. She activated the channel Frank had opened. This is Lieutenant Olivia Warren, United States Marine Corps, she said, her voice growing weaker but still carrying the authority that had led her team through impossible odds. Your leader is dead. Your invasion has failed. Remember this day. Remember who defeated you. Even the stars will learn to fear the Marines. In orbit around Earth, the Kravok fleet fell into disarray as news of Zarthul's death spread through their ranks. Without the Supreme Commander's guidance, ship captains began making individual decisions, some continuing to fight. 5 years passed since the Battle of Earth. The victory had been costly, millions dead, cities destroyed, and much of the planet's infrastructure in ruins. But humanity had survived and even thrived in the aftermath. The Kravok fleet, thrown into disarray by the death of Zarthal, had retreated from Earth's solar system. Without their supreme commander, the rigid hierarchy of the hegemony had fractured, with individual ship commanders making their own decisions. Some continued to fight, but most withdrew to Kravok territory to participate in the power struggle that followed. Earth had used this time well. Utilizing captured alien technology, humans had advanced their own capabilities at an unprecedented rate. Faster ships, stronger materials, and new energy systems transformed Earth's military and civilian sectors alike. The shared experience of fighting for survival united humanity in ways that centuries of internal conflicts never had. Major General Frank Mitchell stood on the bridge of the UNS Olivia Warren, Earth's newest and most advanced diplomatic vessel. 5 years after her sacrifice, Olivia's name had become legendary not just among humans but throughout known space. Her final words, broadcast across the Kravok fleet, had become a rallying cry for Earth's forces and a warning to any who might threaten humanity. Frank straightened his uniform as the ship prepared to exit faster than light travel. Using adapted Kravok technology, the journey to the former hegemony homeworld had taken weeks instead of years. This would be humanity's first official diplomatic mission to the alien empire that had once threatened their existence. Coming out of FTL in 30 seconds, General, reported Captain Samantha Chun from the helm. Thank you, Captain, Frank replied. Alert the diplomatic team. The ship emerged into normal space near Kratog, the capital world of what had once been the Kravok hegemony. Intelligence reports indicated that in the years following Zarthal's death, the Empire had undergone significant changes. The military leadership had been overthrown in favor of a more progressive government, one that sought peaceful relations with other species rather than conquest. As the Warren approached the planet, Frank couldn't help but reflect on how much had changed. He had spent the past 5 years working with the new Terran Defense Force, helping to integrate alien technology and prepare humanity for its new role among the stars. The lessons learned from the war with the Kravok had shaped Earth's approach to space: cautious but not fearful, prepared but not aggressive. We're being hailed, reported the communications officer. The Kravok delegation is ready to receive us. The diplomatic party consisted of representatives from Earth's major nations, along with scientists and military advisors. As the senior military officer with the most experience dealing with the Kravok, Frank had been appointed to lead the security aspect of the mission. The actual negotiations would be handled by Ambassador Elena Rodriguez, a skilled diplomat who had helped forge Earth's unified response during the war. The landing was smooth, with the Warren setting down at a designated spaceport outside the Kravok capital city. Through the viewport, Frank could see the alien landscape's strange angular buildings that reflected the Kravok's preference for geometric precision. Under a sky that glowed faintly purple from the system's binary stars, a delegation of Kravok officials waited as the humans disembarked. Frank noticed immediately how different they appeared from the warriors he had encountered during the war. These Kravok wore minimal ceremonial armor, their forearms exposed in what he recognized as a gesture of trust in their culture. Welcome to Kratog, said the lead alien in carefully practiced English. I am First Diplomatic Coordinator Vexalia. On behalf of the United Kravok Systems, we extend peaceful greetings to Earth. Ambassador Rodriguez stepped forward. We bring greetings from the United Nations of Earth. We come seeking understanding and peaceful cooperation between our peoples. The formal introductions continued, but Frank noticed something curious. Each time a Marine from the security detail moved or spoke, the Kravok diplomats seemed to tense slightly, their multifaceted eyes tracking the humans with particular attention. The first day of negotiations went well, with both sides expressing desire for a formal peace treaty and potential trade agreements. Frank attended as a military advisor, but spoke little, focusing instead on observing the Kravok delegates. Their new government seemed genuine in its peaceful intentions. Though centuries of imperial expansion would not be easily forgotten, that evening at a formal reception in the Kravok governmental complex, Frank found himself approached by Vexalia. The alien diplomat moved with the careful grace of her species, stopping at a respectful distance. "General Mitchell," she said, "your reputation precedes you. Your work with our captured officer Dexon was instrumental in helping your species." "Understand us," Frank nodded. "And in helping us survive your invasion." "A regrettable episode in our history," Vexalia replied, her translator conveying what seemed like genuine regret. The old military leadership viewed conquest as the only path forward for our species. Many of us disagreed, but had no voice in the hegemony. They spoke for some time about the changes in Kravok society, how the defeat at Earth had sparked a revolution that overthrew centuries of military rule. Then Vexalia gestured toward a group of Marine honor guards standing near Ambassador Rodriguez. "I noticed that your Marines cause a certain reaction among our people," she said. "There is a reason for this." Frank followed her gaze. "I've noticed your delegates seem uncomfortable around them." "Not uncomfortable," Vexalia corrected. "Cautious, perhaps even respectful. You see, after your Lieutenant Warren's final message was broadcast across our fleet, recordings spread throughout our empire. Her words, and the fact that a single human warrior had defeated Supreme Commander Zarthal in personal combat, became a powerful symbol." She continued, "In the years since, stories of the Earth Marines have spread throughout not just our systems, but to other species as well. They have become something of a legend, warriors who adapt, who never surrender, who accomplish the impossible. Many of our military reforms were based on studying your Marines' tactics and training methods." Frank felt a complex mix of emotions, pride in the corps he had come to respect so deeply, and sadness at the memory of Olivia and so many others who had given their lives. "If you're willing," Vexalia said, "we have arranged for several of our officer candidates to observe your Marines' training methods during your stay. We believe we have much to learn from your approach to warfare, not to conquer, but to defend." The next day, as part of the diplomatic exchange, a group of Kravok military trainees was permitted to observe a Marine training demonstration. Frank watched as the young aliens studied the humans with intense concentration, recording every movement and tactic. One of the Kravok observers approached Frank afterward. "I was a junior officer during the Earth War," he admitted. "I never understood how your Marines could fight as they did." "Now, I see it is not just training, but something in your nature," Frank nodded. "Marines never quit, never surrender, and never leave anyone behind. That's not just training, it's who we are." As the diplomatic mission continued over the following weeks, a peace treaty began to take shape. Earth and the former hegemony worlds established trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and mutual defense pacts. The species that had nearly destroyed each other found common ground in their shared desire for security and prosperity. On the final day of negotiations, Frank visited the newly erected monument in the center of the Kravok capital, a memorial to those lost in what they now called the War of Change. To his surprise, alongside the names of fallen Kravok, the monument included the names of humans who had died defending Earth. Prominently displayed was Lieutenant Olivia Warren, United States Marine Corps' as Frank stood before the memorial. Vexalia joined him. "Your Lieutenant Warren's words have become something of a saying among our people," she said quietly. "Even the stars will learn to fear the Marines. It is taught to our children not as a threat, but as a reminder of the courage one individual can show in defense of their home." In the years that followed, Earth expanded its presence among the stars. The reputation of the Marines grew with each new encounter as humanity established itself as a force for stability rather than conquest. Other species learned that humans would defend themselves fiercely if threatened, but sought peaceful cooperation whenever possible. Among the spacefaring civilizations of the galaxy, diplomatic protocols began to include a curious precaution. When dealing with Earth vessels or colonies, potential adversaries were given a simple warning: "The Marines have landed." It was all that needed to be said.